Refusing to learn is one of the clearest signs of a foolish person, as it represents a mindset that resists growth, change, and improvement. A person who refuses to learn often believes they already have all the knowledge they need, dismissing new information or different perspectives as unnecessary or even threatening. This kind of attitude prevents personal and intellectual development, keeping them trapped in a cycle of ignorance. When people refuse to learn, they close themselves off from opportunities that could help them grow, both in their personal lives and in their careers. They avoid situations where they might be challenged, preferring to stay within their comfort zones rather than face the discomfort of admitting they don't know everything. This type of person is often defensive when confronted with new ideas or constructive criticism. Instead of listening and considering different viewpoints, they immediately reject anything that contradicts their existing beliefs. They may even mock or ridicule those who try to educate them, believing that their own understanding is superior. This arrogance not only isolates them from valuable knowledge, but also damages relationships with others who might otherwise help them improve. Their unwillingness to accept that they might be wrong leads them to repeat mistakes, often without even realizing it. When faced with failure, they refuse to acknowledge their own role in the situation, blaming external factors instead of reflecting on what they could have done differently. People who refuse to learn also struggle in professional settings. The world is constantly evolving with new technologies, strategies, and information shaping every industry. Those who resist learning quickly become outdated, making them less effective in their jobs and more likely to fall behind their peers. They may feel threatened by younger or more adults. Instead of seeing learning as a way to stay relevant, they cling to outdated methods and refuse to adapt, ultimately limiting their own success. In contrast, those who embrace learning are more likely to advance in their careers because they are willing to acquire new skills and improve their abilities. Another major issue with refusing to learn is that it often leads to poor decision making. Without a willingness to seek new information or consider different perspectives, people make choices based on limited knowledge, assumptions, or outdated beliefs. This can have serious consequences, whether in personal relationships, business decisions, or even day-to-day problem solving. A person who refuses to learn often believes they are making the best choices, but their lack of openness means they are missing crucial insights that could lead to better outcomes. This mindset also affects the way people interact with others. Those who refuse to learn are often stubborn and difficult to work with because they resist collaboration and dismiss the ideas of others. They may come across as arrogant or ignorant, making it hard for them to build meaningful relationships. Over time, people may avoid engaging with them, seeing no point in trying to have a productive conversation with someone who refuses to listen or grow. This isolation only reinforces their ignorance, as they are no longer exposed to diverse perspectives or constructive discussion. The refusal to learn is often rooted in fear of change, fear of being wrong, or fear of looking foolish. Admitting that there is more to learn requires humility, and some people struggle with that vulnerability. They see learning as an admission of weakness rather than an opportunity for strength. However, the reality is that learning is one of the most powerful tools for personal and professional success. Those who continuously seek knowledge and remain open to new ideas are the ones who thrive, while those who resist learning remain stuck, repeating the same patterns and missing out on the benefits of growth. Blaming others is a common trait among those who refuse to take responsibility for their own actions, mistakes, and failures. Instead of acknowledging their role in a situation, they look for external factors to blame, whether it's other people, circumstances, or even luck. This mindset prevents personal growth, as it allows them to admire that they meet average hand acceptance with self-reflection and the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. By shifting the blame, they create a false sense of justification for their failures, convincing themselves that they are never at fault. This pattern of thinking is not only harmful to the individual, but also damages relationships and trust with others. People who constantly blame others often develop a victim mentality where they see themselves as powerless in every situation. They believe that life is unfair, that the world is against them, and that they are simply unlucky. This mindset makes them resistant to change because they don't see the point in trying to improve if everything is supposedly out of their control. On stage, people say life is going to be hard. Unstage thinkers describe the word unlucky as hard because they find everything easy. Instead of taking action to fix problems, they focus on finding someone or something to blame, which keeps them stuck in the same cycle of failure. When things go wrong, their first instinct is to point fingers rather than ask what they could have done differently. This inability to take ownership of their actions creates a life filled with frustration as they are constantly waiting for external factors to change instead of making an effort to change themselves. In workplaces, this behavior can be particularly damaging. Employees or leaders who constantly blame others create toxic environments where accountability is avoided and progress is hindered. A person who refuses to take responsibility for their mistakes will often shift blame onto colleagues, subordinates, or even clients. This not only destroys trust within a team, but also reduces overall efficiency and morale. When people are afraid of being blamed for something they didn't do, they become hesitant to take risks or share ideas, fearing that any mistake will be unfairly placed on them. In contrast, workplaces that encourage accountability and learning from mistakes foster innovation and cooperation. Blaming others can also severely impact personal relationships. A person who never admits their mistakes and always shifts blame can be difficult to deal with, as they refuse to acknowledge their role in conflicts or misunderstandings. In friendships, they may always find a reason why the other person is at fault, making it exhausting for those around them to maintain a connection. In romantic relationships, this behavior can lead to constant arguments and resentment, as one person always feels like they are being unfairly blamed for problems that should be addressed together. Over time, people may begin to distance themselves from someone who refuses to take responsibility, leading to isolation and loneliness. One of the main reasons people develop the habit of blaming others is the fear of failure and criticism. Admitting a mistake requires humility, self-awareness, and the courage to face one's shortcomings. For some, this is too uncomfortable, so they deflect the blame onto others to protect their ego. They may also fear the consequences of admitting fault, whether it's embarrassment, punishment, or losing respect. However, avoiding responsibility only leads to greater problems in the long run. Instead of learning and growing, they continue making the same mistakes, damaging their reputation and credibility. People who frequently blame others are often seen as unreliable, untrustworthy, and incapable of handling challenges with maturity. Another consequence of blaming others is that it removes the ability to take control of one's own life. When someone believes that everything is someone else's fault, they surrender their power to change their circumstances. They convince themselves that their problems are caused by external forces rather than their own choices, which leads to inaction and stagnation. Those who take responsibility for their actions gain confidence, resilience, and the ability to overcome obstacles, while those who blame others remain stuck in a cycle of frustration and disappointment. Talking more than listening is a common trait among those who lack self-awareness and emotional intelligence. People who dominate conversations often believe that their thoughts, opinions, and experiences are more important than those of others. They may interrupt frequently, dismiss different viewpoints, or steer discussions back to themselves without considering what others have to say. This behavior not only makes meaningful conversations difficult, but also prevents personal growth and learning. Communication is a two-way process, and those who only focus on expressing themselves without taking the time to listen miss valuable insights, perspectives, and connections that could help them develop as individuals. One of the primary reasons people talk more than they listen is the need to feel important or validated. They may believe that speaking constantly makes them appear knowledgeable or influential, but in reality, it often has the opposite effect. When someone talks excessively without listening, they come across as self-centered or arrogant, making it difficult for others to engage with them. People appreciate conversations where they feel heard and understood, and those who monopolize discussions tend to push others away. Instead of fostering strong relationships, they create a barrier that prevents genuine connections from forming. Another reason why some people talk too much is their discomfort with silence or a lack of patience. They may feel uneasy when there is a pause in conversation, rushing to fill the space with their own words instead of allowing a natural flow of dialogue. This impatience prevents deeper understanding because meaningful conversations require time for processing and reflection. Those who fail to listen miss the opportunity to grasp the emotions, concerns, and thoughts of others, which can lead to misunderstandings and miscommunication. Effective listening involves not just hearing words, but also understanding the underlying messages, emotions, and intentions behind them. In professional environments, talking more than listening can be especially damaging. Leaders or colleagues who fail to listen to others often struggle to build strong teams, resolve conflicts, or make informed decisions. When someone dominates discussions in meetings or dismisses input from others, they create an environment where employees feel undervalued and hesitant to share ideas. This stifles creativity and innovation, as valuable insights are overlooked in favor of one-sided monologues. Successful leaders understand the importance of listening to their team members, gathering feedback, and considering multiple perspectives before making decisions. Those who fail to do so risk making poor choices that could have been avoided with better communication. In personal relationships, excessive talking and poor listening habits can create frustration and distance between people. A person who always talks about themselves without showing interest in others may be perceived as selfish or inconsiderate. Over time, friends and loved ones may begin to withdraw from conversations, feeling as though their thoughts and feelings are not valued. Healthy relationships are built on mutual understanding, respect, and empathy, all of which require active listening. When one person constantly overshadows the other in conversations, it creates an imbalance that weakens the bond between them. Learning to listen shows care and appreciation for the other person's perspective, strengthening trust and deepening. The failure to listen also leads to misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts. When someone is more focused on responding rather than understanding, they may misinterpret what others are saying or jump to conclusions without fully grasping the message. This can cause frustration for both parties, as the person speaking does not feel heard, and the person who dominates the conversation fails to comprehend important details. Active listening requires patience, attention, and the willingness to engage with another person's ideas without immediately trying to impose one's own thoughts. Developing strong listening skills allows for clearer communication, better problem solving, and more meaningful interactions, leading to stronger relationships and personal growth. Disrespecting others is a clear sign of a lack of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and basic human decency. People who constantly belittle, insult, or undermine others often do so because of their own insecurities, arrogance, or lack of empathy. They may believe that putting others down makes them appear stronger, smarter, or more important, but in reality, it only reveals their own weaknesses. Respect is the foundation of healthy relationships, both personal and professional. And those who fail to show it often find themselves isolated, disliked, or struggling to maintain meaningful connections. One common form of disrespect is speaking to others in a condescending or dismissive manner. And when someone constantly talks down to people, ignores their input, or treats them as if they are unimportant, it creates an environment of negativity and resentment. This behavior is often seen in workplaces where certain individuals feel superior to their colleagues and refuse to acknowledge the value of others' contributions. Instead of fostering collaboration and teamwork, disrespectful behavior creates divisions and conflicts that hinder productivity and morale. Those who consistently treat others poorly may believe they are asserting dominance, but in the long run, they only damage their own reputation and credibility. Disrespect can also be expressed through actions rather than words. Ignoring someone, rolling eyes, interrupting, or refusing to acknowledge another person's presence are all forms of silent disrespect that can be just as harmful as verbal insults. These actions send the message that the other person is not valued or worthy of attention, which can lead to feelings of exclusion, frustration, and low self-esteem. In social settings, people who constantly engage in these behaviors often find that others begin to distance themselves, unwilling to tolerate their lack of basic courtesy. Over time, this can result in loneliness and strained relationships, as no one enjoys being around someone who consistently disrespects those around them. Another way disrespect manifests is through a lack of consideration for others' time, feelings, or personal boundaries. People who show up late without apology, interrupt conversations without regard, or dismiss the emotions of others demonstrate a fundamental disregard for the needs and experiences of those around them. This can be particularly harmful in relationships where one person's constant disregard for the other's feelings can lead to resentment and emotional distance. A person who regularly invalidates others by saying things like, "You're overreacting," or "That's not important," sends a message that their thoughts and emotions do not matter, which weakens trust and connection over time. Disrespect is often rooted in a sense of entitlement or superiority. Some individuals believe they are above others due to their status, wealth, intelligence, or other factors, leading them to treat people with less regard. This mindset can be especially toxic in leadership positions, where a person in power may belittle subordinates, dismiss their concerns, or treat them unfairly, simply because they believe they can. However, true leadership is built on respect, fairness, and the ability to uplift others rather than tear them down. Those who abuse their authority and treat others poorly often find that their influence is short-lived, as people eventually refuse to tolerate being disrespected. In personal interactions, a lack of respect can lead to constant arguments, broken friendships, and failed relationships. When one person consistently disregards the thoughts, feelings, or boundaries of another, trust begins to erode, making it difficult to maintain a strong connection. Respect is a two-way street, and those who refuse to give it rarely receive it in return. Well, learning to treat others with kindness, consideration, and fairness not only strengthens relationships, but also reflects maturity and emotional intelligence. Those who choose to act with respect gain the admiration and trust of others, while those who continue to disrespect people often find themselves facing the consequences of their behavior. Repeating mistakes is a clear sign of a lack of self-awareness, critical thinking, and the ability to learn from past experiences. People who continually make the same errors without reflecting on the consequences often find themselves stuck in a cycle of failure and frustration. Instead of analyzing what went wrong and adjusting their action, this pattern not only affects personal growth, but also impacts relationships, careers, and overall life satisfaction. The inability to recognize and correct mistakes prevents improvement and keeps individuals from reaching their full potential. One of the main reasons people repeat mistakes is their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. Instead of acknowledging that their decisions led to undesirable outcomes, they shift the blame onto others, circumstances, or bad luck. This mindset prevents them from learning because they fail to see the role they played in their own struggles. When someone refuses to accept accountability, they miss the opportunity to grow and develop better decision-making skills. Without self-reflection, they continue making choices based on faulty reasoning, leading to the same negative outcomes time and time again. Another reason mistakes are repeated is the tendency to act on impulse rather than careful consideration. People who fail to think through their choices often make decisions based on emotions, habits, or short-term desires rather than logical reasoning. They may choose immediate gratification over long-term success, leading to repeated failures in areas such as finances, relationships, or career development. Instead of learning patience and discipline, they give in to the same temptations only to regret their actions later. Over time, these repeated mistakes can create lasting consequences that become increasingly difficult to overcome. Fear of change also plays a significant role in why people continue making the same mistakes. Even when they recognize that their choices are leading to negative results, they may resist making adjustments because change feels uncomfortable or uncertain. They may convince themselves that their way is the only way, even when evidence suggests otherwise. This stubbornness prevents growth and keeps them trapped in a repetitive cycle of failure. Instead of embracing new approaches or learning from successful individuals, they cling to old habits, believing that things will somehow improve on their own. In professional settings, repeating mistakes can have serious consequences. Employees who fail to learn from their errors risk damaging their reputation, losing opportunities, or even facing termination. When someone consistently ignores feedback and refuses to correct their approach, it signals a lack of adaptability and competence. Successful professionals recognize the importance of continuous improvement and take proactive steps to avoid making the same mistake. They seek feedback, analyze their failures, and implement better strategies to ensure progress. Those who refuse to do so often find themselves falling behind while others advance. In relationships, making the same mistakes repeatedly can lead to trust issues, misunderstandings, and eventual breakdowns. People who fail to learn from past conflicts may continue engaging in behaviors that hurt their partners, friends, or family members. Whether it's poor communication, dishonesty, or neglect, repeating harmful patterns makes it difficult to build and maintain healthy connections. Over time, loved ones may lose patience and distance themselves, recognizing that the person is unwilling or unable to change. Relationships require growth, and those who do not learn from their mistakes often find themselves alone or struggling to maintain meaningful bonds. One of the biggest obstacles to breaking the cycle of repeated mistakes is a lack of self-reflection. People who never take the time to analyze their actions, choices, and patterns of behavior are unlikely to make meaningful changes. Reflection allows individuals to identify what went wrong, understand why it happened, and develop strategies to prevent it from happening again. Those who commit to self-improvement, however, can break free from destructive cycles and create a better future for themselves. Being easily manipulated is a sign of a lack of critical thinking, self-confidence, and awareness of one's surroundings. People who fall victim to manipulation often struggle to distinguish between genuine advice and deceitful influence, making them vulnerable to those who seek to control or take advantage of them. This can happen in personal relationships, workplaces, social settings, and even in larger societal contexts where misinformation spreads rapidly. When someone lacks the ability to question, analyze, and make independent decisions, they become easy targets for those who wish to exploit their trust. Instead of making choices based on their own reasoning, they allow others to dictate their actions, often leading to unfavorable consequences. One reason people are easily manipulated is their deep desire for approval and acceptance. Those who lack self-confidence often seek validation from others, making them more likely to follow suggestions without questioning the motives behind them. Manipulative individuals recognize this weakness and use it to their advantage, offering false praise or emotional appeals to steer their victims in a particular direction. The need to be liked or to fit in can cloud judgment, preventing individuals from realizing when they are being used. Instead of trusting their own instincts, they rely on the opinions of others, which can lead them down harmful paths. Another factor that contributes to manipulation is a lack of knowledge or experience. When someone does not take the time to educate themselves on important matters, they become easy targets for deception. Scammers, dishonest leaders, and even toxic friends take advantage of people who do not ask questions or research before making decisions. Without the ability to critically evaluate information, individuals accept misleading statements as truth, making them more susceptible to being misled. Those who fail to recognize manipulation may repeatedly fall for lies, scams, or toxic influences, leading to financial loss, emotional distress, or damaged relationships. Emotional manipulation is another common form of control that preys on a person's fears, guilt, or sense of duty. Manipulative people use tactics such as guilt tripping, playing the victim, or making exaggerated emotional appeals to get what they want. Those who are easily manipulated often struggle to set boundaries, fearing conflict or rejection if they refuse to comply. They may feel obligated to meet the demands of others, even when it goes against their own best interests. This pattern of behavior leads to an imbalance in relationships, where one person constantly gives while the other takes without reciprocation. Over time, this can result in emotional exhaustion, resentment, and a loss of personal identity. In workplaces, being easily manipulated can lead to exploitation and unfair treatment. Employees who are unable to assert themselves may find themselves taking on more responsibilities without proper recognition or compensation. Manipulative colleagues or supervisors may use flattery, false promises, or intimidation to control those who do not challenge their authority. Those who fail to recognize manipulation may work harder without questioning whether they are being treated fairly, ultimately leading to burnout and dissatisfaction. Learning to identify when someone is using deceitful tactics allows individuals to stand up for themselves and demand the respect they deserve. Another reason people fall victim to manipulation is their tendency to trust blindly without verifying facts. In an age of misinformation, social media, and biased news sources, many individuals accept information at face value without questioning its authenticity. This makes them more likely to believe false narratives, conspiracy theories, or persuasive arguments designed to influence their thoughts and actions. Instead of forming opinions based on logic and research, they allow others to dictate what they should think and believe. Developing a habit of questioning, fact-checking, and considering multiple perspectives is essential in preventing manipulation and making informed decisions. The key to avoiding manipulation is developing self-awareness, critical thinking, and the confidence to stand by one's own decisions. Recognizing red flags, setting boundaries, and refusing to be swayed by emotional tactics are crucial in protecting oneself from being controlled by others. Those who take the time to educate themselves, question motives, and trust their own judgment are far less likely to be manipulated. Learning to say no, asking for evidence before believing claims, and surrounding oneself with trustworthy individuals help in creating a strong defense against manipulation. Developing these skills leads to greater independence, confidence, and the ability to make choices that align with one's true values and best interests.